Welcome to the GCN Tech Clinic, where we aim to answer your tech and bike related questions. As ever, you can submit your questions using the hashtag AskGCNTech down in the comment section below and on social media. So without further ado, let's get into your questions from last week. First up though, I need to read you a comment that was written under the last Tech Clinic, which was about what happens to the bikes from the Tour de France after the Tour de France. Evan O'Connor cracked me up with his comment where he said, what happens to all the bikes after the Tour de France? They recycle them. Brilliant. You win the internet, Evan O'Connor. But our first question comes from Paul Chewer, who says, is it bad to degrease and relube your chain too regularly? I live in Sydney, where it's mostly sunny and dry. Currently ride around 200 kilometers a week, and I wash my bike, including degreasing my chain, once a week. Well, if you are regularly, degreasing and doing your chain regularly like that, it's going to prolong the life of the chain. What you do need to be careful of is what else you're impacting on the rest of your bike. So I don't know how you're washing your bike, but for example, if you are jet washing and using lots of aerosols and things that can strip out grease from other areas, that can potentially strip out the bearings in, say, your free hub or your headset or your bottom bracket. So you need to be mindful of that, in which case the best way to clean your bike, if you are going to be doing that, is probably to take the chain off and then clean it that way, as that way you're isolating the chain. But continually cleaning the chain, if it's isolated from the rest of the bike, should prolong its life and also save you watts in drivetrain efficiency as well if you're relubing it with some good lube. Clean chain is a fast chain. Next question is from Jason Skelton, who says, when I see a rider have a mechanical in a Grand Tour, I wonder what can go wrong with a bike that was just reviewed by a professional team mechanic. Are there common mechanical failures in races? Well, that is a good question. The most common reason why a rider would stop in a race is likely to be because of a puncture. And a lot of people wonder, why do the pros seem to get so many punctures compared to the rest of us? And the main reason for that is they're getting pinch punctures because when they're riding in a big peloton, they can't often see potholes or problems in the road. And even if they do see it, they often can't necessarily move for it because they're in a big, tight bunch. And so riders do often then plough into potholes, and that's when they get punctures. So that's the most common thing. But then other things that can happen are, occasionally, if you hit a pothole or something, the seat post might move. Or another problem I've seen is Di2 cables or on other electronic shifting. Sometimes if a rider comes in close contact with another rider, sometimes it's not been unknown for the riders, say, skewer quick release on the front wheel to just catch that cable and yank it out, things like that. Or just from a crash, sometimes the bars have been knocked and they're not quite right. They've got up, they've carried on riding again, but then they've realised that the bars moved or something, and then they want a new bike because of that. So there's lots of little things that can happen, but yes, it's generally not huge mechanical things that would have been spotted by a mechanic. So I hope that answers your question, but there's so many little things that can just be slightly off on a bike, and often they want it perfect. Abzi says, when I see people have their bike in a work stand, why do they clamp it to the seat post? And is there any reason to do that, say, instead of clamping it on the top tube? Yep. This is something that I think a lot of the viewers will know, but if you don't know, the reason why you don't clamp it on the top tube is it's easier to crush the top tube. So you risk damaging your bike this isn't designed to take load under compression in that way, whereas a seat post is designed to take load under compression in that way, as it is also clamped here in the frame. So that's why, it's to stop damaging your bike. Grick the bot, so I hope you're not a bot. Normally answer questions from bots. He says, how much does a pro bike usually cost? Well, we did this in a tech show about what was the cheapest bike in the Tour de France. And if you add them all up, the kind of benchmark figure you're looking at is around £10,000. So would that be like $12,000 or $11,000 or a similar amount in euros? So yeah, that's sort of the going rate, but again, we see fluctuations in that down to sort of £7,000 for some bikes, up to 15k and beyond for maybe some of the Ineos bikes and the more expensive end of the scale. So quite a bit, but they are pros in the world's biggest bike race. Reese Turner says, I've rounded off my pedal trying to get it off. I've tried anti-seize and a vice grip to get it off, but I've had no luck. What now? Right, this is kind of like when you ask IT for help when you've got a problem and they say, have you tried rebooting it, turning it off and on again? Have you made sure that you are undoing your pedal in the right way around? Because I know it sounds obvious, but people do forget that the left and right pedals have opposite threads. So make sure you're doing that. And then once you know that you're pulling in the right direction, it all just becomes about leverage. So if you can get a bigger lever on there, you should be able to do it. But then you say you've rounded the pedal out. Does it have an Allen key socket on the back? A lot of pedals do. If it doesn't have an Allen key socket on the back that you can't use, then you're gonna have to clamp it in some way. In which case some kind of, like if you could use a vice grip or mole grips to clamp on with like a toggle clamp, and then attach a bigger lever onto those mole grips, maybe like a big pipe that you can get that greater leverage, get greater moment, then you might have some luck there. But yeah, sounds like a tough one. Jasper Morse says, good afternoon. I'm looking at buying a new road bike that happens to come with a 1x system and a 46 tooth chainring with a 1036 cassette at the back. His question is, will I have enough gears for tough steep climbs, or am I better with a double chainring up front? Well, simple way for you to check this out and actually assess what gears you're getting if you're unfamiliar is to go online and Google bike gear ratio calculator or words to that effect, and there are bike gear calculator tools available on various websites where you simply type in the gears that you've got and what you want to compare them against, and then it will say for a given speed what cadence you have to pedal at to get that speed. It's really useful, and that way it'll tell you what is equivalent to, say, so for example, to put it into context, a 48 10 tooth, which is very close to what you've got, is said to be a slightly bigger gear than a 53 11, and it will also be able to do it for your easier gears as well. That would be my recommendation, as that will give you an idea of the kind of range and spread, and then you'll know what's best for you based on that. Next question is from Philippe Renault, who says, Ollie, given the conclusions of the impact of bike weight loss versus aero gains on a climb, would you have changed the bike that you used when you did an Everesting? I don't think I would have changed the bike I would have used. I think I would have changed the climb I would have used. When I did it, it was kind of I did it just to do it and complete it on a climb that had never been Everested before. But the climb I chose was far from optimal for doing a fast Everesting, because I had to pedal quite a lot on the descent. It was a fairly technical descent, and also the mid-section of my descent was basically flat. So I did have to pedal, and also the climb was at altitude, which made it quite a bit harder as well. So I would pick a shorter, much steeper climb if I were to do it again, and in which case I'd go for the lightest bike possible. So probably pretty similar to what I used before, which was a Canyon Ultimate with tubular wheels on it. So there you go. Luca Pekak has the last question for this week, which is, how can you properly check a bike frame or fork after you've crashed it? I got hit by a car. Sorry to hear that. I hope you're all right, Luca. So I'm not sure if it's better to buy a new bike or repair a damaged one. Thank you. Well, fortunately, there are specialist services in most parts of the world that can actually check a bike and assess if it is safe to ride after you've crashed it. These are often used by insurance companies when handling insurance claims for new bikes to determine if a bike has been written off. So I would suggest trying to track down one of those. They do exist in various places. There is, one that we've visited to before called Carbon Bike Repair in Leatherhead, who do actually assess bikes to see if they're damaged and then actually have a repair service as well. And I mean, personally, I would have no problem with riding a repaired bike. I'm pretty confident in the services that I've seen, but I can't comment on other bike repair services. But yes, I think that it is possible to repair carbon fibre to a good standard. I know a couple of people that do it. But that said, yeah, the only real way to know is to actually take it to a specialist who can assess the frame. Otherwise, it can be really, really hard to tell. You can't just kind of like look at it because the damage could be on the inside. There you go. Right, well, I hope you're all right and I hope you recover from your crash and it wasn't too bad. And that's the end of the Tech Clinic this week. That's all we've got time for. So sorry if I've not been able to answer your question this week. It is always a pleasure answering your questions. I really enjoy getting them in. So make sure you keep typing away in the comments section below. And if I haven't answered your question this week, bang it down in the comments and hopefully we'll get to it in a future Tech Clinic. And until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.